Good morning, everybody. My name is Ivan Ramirez, and I'm with the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. For those of you in the room, don't mind the camera. We like to record the sessions and then post them on YouTube so people can watch them over and over again, or the ones that cannot make it into the room can watch them live or afterwards. So this is the pre-bid meeting for the I-680 State Road 4 Interchange Improvement Project. We have 5 phases in this project. We're starting with phase 3, which we're going to talk in detail in a little bit, but it's primarily widening Highway 4 along the median from Martinez all the way to Route 242. So for those of you that don't know us, we are a self-help county. We collect 0.5% sales tax for transportation projects and programs. We leverage a lot of that money with local, meaning regional money, state money, and federal money to deliver projects. This particular project benefited enormously from SB 1. That's the tax measure that passed recently, where there was additional sales tax on gas. So we are very happy that that particular funding was available for this project, and we were able to bring it out to construction because it's been on our books for a long, long time looking for funding. So we have a 11-member board that governs us, and primarily you won't have to deal with them, but that's how we operate. What do? We do all kinds of transportation programs. We also do carpool and ride share. We also help fund other projects like BART, County Connection. We contribute to a lot of those programs. And of course, we do deliver highway transportation projects. We only build them, and then we turn them over to Caltrans, becomes part of the state highway system. So a little bit about our roles and who actually runs the construction program. We have our executive director, Randy Wasaki. Many of you might know him. He is the former director of Caltrans. He was hired about 10 years ago to run CCTA, and then he implemented the construction program here. Then just underneath him, we have our deputy executive director, Tim Hale. Below him is myself, and primarily you're going to be dealing with myself and the people below me. Who we have over here is Chris Cole, to my right. He's the PMO. A lot of you that have worked, or for some of you that have worked in our projects, you know that he's the person that primarily engages the contractors on a daily basis. From the authority perspective, we also hire a resident engineer from MB5, Joe Reyes. Joe Reyes has a great experience. He and I worked together at the Carquines project. He was stationed in Japan for like 2 years delivering the steel segments. So he has a lot of experience working for Caltrans and Caltrans projects. And then the designer, Ben, he's not here right now, but he is with WMH. So that's the core team on our end. So a few things to know about our projects and how we operate. You know, obviously you have to comply with prevailing wages, and you will be registered with the Department of Industrial Relations in order to submit a bid, both primes and subs. We like safety. We have a very strong safety record. We sometimes hire consultants specifically to come over and watch the safety aspect of the work. So they are going to be engaged, and we expect you as well, contractor, the winning bidder, to be as safe as possible, and anything that we can do to help make your operation safer, then that's something that we're going to be listening to. So make sure you approach us with any concerns you have. We like contractors to hire local firms, but it's not required in this contract. And we will ask you quarterly, on a quarterly basis, to submit a form that indicates to us how many or how much money, how much work you have given to local firms, but it's only a requirement that you submit. How much work you're giving out is not a requirement that you have to give the work out. We survive, like I said earlier, on a sales tax. It's called Measure J. And we like to say that when we go to the public and we tell them, we make promises to them, that we keep them. So we are very active in making sure that our transportation projects minimize the or are more convenient for the public as much as possible. So we will try to work with you in that sense too. Partnering is the way we do business. That comes from the very top. We are part of the International Partnering Institute, and we won the Partnering Agency of the Year last year, and we have won several partnering projects. We believe in partnering. We don't like to have issues linger on for a long, long time, making things more difficult. We want to be problem solvers with the contractor, hand in hand, working together to deliver the project. We believe that that's the best way to do business. We also like good communication. If something's going wrong, make sure we know as quickly as possible. And when things are going well, we also want to make sure as quickly as possible. We aspire to be the owner of choice. Like I said, we partner. We're always engaged with our contractors, and we want to help them be successful. And at the end of the day, we also would like to have fun. So we hopefully our partnering sessions will be fun and have a good time delivering this very important transportation project. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joe. He's going to speak about the project in more detail.
Good morning, guys. My name is Joe Reyes. So I'm the resident engineer on this job. So I just want to go over a few things on the project to give you a kind of 30,000 foot elevation and highlight some of the key components that make this job unique and the challenges that we may be facing out there. So starting out with some of the important dates that we have, obviously today's our pre-bid meeting, but we have a bidder inquiries that are ongoing right now, and the deadline of that is August 16th. With a bid opening scheduled for August 23rd. So that gives at least a month left to go through the plans. There's probably 800 sheets of plans at this point, so there's quite a bit. So I just want to highlight a few things, and then the biggest thing on this job is we already know when you're supposed to hit the ground and go to construction. Dave, I told you it's September 19th. October 19th. And 675 working days allotted for the project, and a current engineer's estimate of 80 million and change. So one thing different, although this is a big project, it is not federally funded. So the DBE, which we are familiar with always hearing, it's there as a goal, but there's none established. So keep that in mind. And at the same time, everything else regarding SBE and usage of that, we encourage it, and it's there, but there's no requirement for it. And of course, with a big project like this, there it is per the contract specs that, the LDs are in the $20,000 range. And then because we are working within the Caltrans right away, I'm sure we're going to be using lane closures and such, so those LDs are stipulated in the contract as well. Location, well, we're right there in the middle of Highway 4 and 680 as a good starting point. Where that is exactly is between Glacier Avenue off Highway 4, and we have about a 4 to 5 mile stretch of the freeway that we got to improve in terms of the median and outside widening. Within there are 6 structures, 5 of which are to be widened, and 1, Grayson Creek, is to be completely replaced. So having said that, we are going to be well within all the right-of-way of Caltrans, also bordered by an adjacent airport. So those are the 30,000 foot elevation challenges, as well as working on the local streets between Pacheco Boulevard, Peralta, and Solano Way. The improvements we're going to be doing obviously starts at the Milano Glacier Drive all the way down to 242, which is, I said, it's an HOV widening essentially, and it adds about 6 miles of a mixed flow eastbound and westbound. I talked about the bridges that are going to be widened / replaced at Grayson Creek. And of course, within there's a lot of miscellaneous retaining walls, sign structures and such that you would expect on a big project along this highway. So here's an overview of where we're starting. The county offices are right around in this exit here, Glacier Avenue off Highway 4. There is the median widening and the mixed flow lanes on the westbound and eastbound. And as we move further to the interchange, we're obviously going to widen Pacheco Boulevard Bridge as well as the improvements on the interchange. Moving further, we get to Grayson Creek. This is the one that's going to get fully replaced in 2 stages. We have to deal with Grayson Creek work windows as always. And likewise, we also have Walnut Creek. This one, I believe, is going to be only a median widening, so it can probably be done in one stage. And as we move further west towards the end of the project, we have Solano Way, Undercrossing, and Peralta, all of which have roads underneath them. But specifically, Solano Way is one that we need to pay attention to because there is an extra space storage underneath the structure that needs to be coordinated. And access with regards to working with that owner is very, very limited. So that's all stipulated in the special provisions. So please pay attention to that to make sure that you attack it accurately. And then lastly, the project ends towards near 242, and eventually, when it's all said and done, this is a primary HOV lane that's going to get used and connect east and west side of Highway 4. So this project has been a long time coming, and it took a long time to get here, and there's pressure for us to get it started. So I know there's already discussions of whether this job is going to get postponed or delayed or, you know, moved out bid opening. At this point, we have to stick to our schedules. So that's the answer that we're hearing from CCTA. So that's the way we're going to proceed forward as of right now. A little bit more, same thing, just ending it. A little bit more of the closer look. This job has both cut and fill, so I don't see any import on this job, so it's mainly roadway X and balancing. So some of our typical cuts, obviously as shown right there, starting at the beginning of the job. I don't know if you can see some of the quantities I wanted to highlight there just to give you a magnitude and perspective of how much AC we're putting down. We got about 29,000 tons there of type A asphalt and then another 8,000 tons. So not like super great quantities, but enough to make sure that we pay attention to those. Of course, we have our JPC pavement that we got to deal with, and there's a lot of slab replacements out there to be determined. We've attempted to show all those on the plans, but we know those are going to grow potentially, so keep an eye on that. And then in some sections, the difference is the other one was not a full median fill. This one is. And of course, when we get to the fill section, there's the existing, and we're actually raising this. This is more towards the Grayson Creek area where we're actually raising up the structures and approach ramps or approach structures to meet the flood criteria. And within those, going to be some retaining walls and such to make sure. Pacheco Boulevard, I wanted to kind of highlight some of these specific bridges. It is like a maybe 55-45 breakdown, 60-40 in round numbers where structures are, at least on our engineer's estimate, relative to the roadway prices. So here at Pacheco Boulevard, which is the very first one, you know, we're looking at obviously the two-stage construction where you see us talking about doing the middle first and then ultimately doing the outside. At the same time, there's some retrofit using column casings for the existing structure. So we got demolition, we got driven pipe piles, as well as precast girders here. And again, as I said, it's stage construction. Pile driving, I want to highlight, I was talking to Dave earlier, is a key here that we're not allowing any pile driving at night. So it's important to look at every one of these locations as we had during the design phase to make sure that you look at it, because some areas you may be able to get a regular rig out there, but in some areas you may have to get a special equipment rig to get underneath the bridges. And then moving these pile rigs at night is probably our solution because we can't close the local streets in the daytime, let alone some of the freeway closures are going to be very limited. 680 and 4, same thing. We also have driven piles over here. Precast girders, two-stage construction, so very similar with column casing retrofit. This is probably the busiest of all the bridges just because 4 and 680 all meet there. So depending on how you attack the work, it's just paying attention to the lane closure requirements and what lanes you can do your work in the daytime versus the nighttime. Grayson Creek. This one, if we go out to construction this year, we obviously missed the window, so this is going to have to go to the next work window, which is next year. And because it's two-stage, it's probably going to take 2 seasons to get it out. So we're talking about, you know, 2-season construction here as well. Very similar to the other ones. Precast girders, stage 1, and then column retrofits, and obviously stage 2 where we widen and put it all together. Surveys on the contractor, just a note on this. So one of the things when we do two-stage construction is we always want to make sure what we built on stage one will still match what we are anticipating on stage two. So all that is all spelled out also in the contract. And as we get to Walnut Creek, we can probably attack this next season and get it done in one season if we're plan our work aggressively enough. Likewise, the only difference now, this one is cast in place box girder, so now we have to deal with false work. And if someone asked me earlier, some of the precast girders are allowed to have metal decking, but some are not. That's more of a Caltrans requirement instead of a CCTA requirement in terms of visual. So only Grayson Creek, I believe, is allowed to have a precast girder with a metal decking. The rest that are precast, they want them stripped, to form the old-fashioned way. These are all driven pipe piles, and we're going to be limited to our June 15th, October 15th work window here as well. And then moving on to the local streets, Solano Way, this one please pay particular attention because we both have driven piles as well as CIDH piles. And if you look, I got here some big monster piles that are out there in terms of CIDH. Kinder Morgan utilities are out there, so there's some specific requirements that they have. But more importantly, Solano Way, the existing business that's out there, Extra Space Storage, they are very concerned on how we're going to build this bridge over them because they have a storage facility directly underneath our bridge, and they are not being accommodating in terms of number of nights we're allowed there and access. So we put the information in the specs as best as we can. Please pay attention to that, but we basically have a cast-in-place pre-stressed box girder there that we're building. At the same time, we're also retrofitting the columns and adding a link beam there. So there's a lot of work to be done on that, and it's on a local street. Okay? So again, I want to emphasize the difficult access there. And lastly, Peralta Road. This one is simply supported structure, no columns. So the only limitation we have here is being able to work around on the local street in terms of moving our equipment. But if we can do most of it on the top, on the side, you know, then the only issue we would be dealing with in terms of local traffic is getting our false work in there. Some of the specific features, if you focus on Grayson Creek, which is where this is, because we are elevating the structure there, we are going to have to do it in stage construction. So we have anticipated these temporary retaining walls. We didn't define which one you can use, because you can obviously have multiple design that are going to be evaluated, but at the end of the day, it's your design. It's up to you what you want to use. And in this particular area, there's a lot of things going on. We have aerially deposited lead, as well as the fill has to be lightweight embankment. So all that needs to be considered in how we're going to design this temporary wall, and more importantly, execute it and get this thing in place while we're dealing with traffic. So temporary wall, I want to highlight that and make sure you're aware of it. And of course, we have a few retaining walls. I just wanted to show this is probably one of the longest retaining wall along near 680 and 4. It's only 450 feet long. I keep looking over there. I have it here too. And anyway, that's the one that we probably just want to highlight. There's 2 walls out here, and this is the longest one. So here's the lightweight cellular embankment. Again, if you saw my other picture, you know, I had stage construction shown on there with the temporary retaining walls. This has to be incorporated with that same drawing that we anticipate, and then stage it out somehow. And you know, lightweight cellular embankment, it's like pouring water out there almost, so you have to kind of pour it in certain lifts and factor your design on your retaining wall as well, and encapsulate it. And lastly, as I said, in the same area, we have aerially deposited lead, and we are allowed to encapsulate that in the existing roadway. So if we can make that happen the way we've anticipated it here, and combine our stage construction along with our lightweight embankment fill, it's all in one area. So I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that, because I think that's probably where a lot of the one on top of each other discussion is going to happen between whatever, the subs or the primes. And not to mention, because this is a 4-mile to 6-mile stretch of freeway in various locations, there's over 100 drainage systems. So all that means is there's probably a lot of utilities out there that we got to coordinate with to make sure that we get our drainages exactly as shown on plan, and then maybe make some adjustments or have potentially relocate other utilities that were not anticipated. Because we are working with Grayson Creek and Walnut Creek, there's specific permit requirements, as you would know, and every time we work around water. So I just wanted to highlight a few of these that are out here and be familiar with them. They are part of your package for informational. Gosh, I think there's like 800 informational sheets that are out there. So those are available for you to peruse through, because it leads to getting the work done on the 2 creeks that we have, Walnut and Grayson Creek. Again, we have June 15th through October 15th. We obviously missed our first window this year, but we got season 1 and 2 next year, and those have to happen. And I think the critical path will probably go through Grayson Creek, just because it's 2-stage and it has the most work as far as almost building 2 bridges and only have 2 seasons to get it done. We will have a biologist on board and to monitor both pre-construction, ongoing construction, and after construction to make sure we're in compliant with the permits. Just so you guys know that. And then within that temporary creek, in our plans, we've anticipated that you probably will need these diversion dams or temporary creek diversion. The only caveat is they cannot stay in place past October 15th. So if you do have work that needs to be done past October 15th that requires you to be out there, they must be pulled out. So that means, as an example, Grayson Creek, you're going to have to put that creek twice, the diversion dam twice, if you're going to come back the following year. Okay? Bridge removal. One thing I want to highlight, we're going to allow bridge removal, and it's only between 9 p.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday, as it currently shows on the specs right now. These are the bridges to be removed. It's almost like an exception to the noise restriction requirements, because that's a sensitive topic to CCTA. So pile driving used to be here, but it was removed due to the issues that we were facing with other projects. So bridge demolition is going to fall in the night between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. Although we're only moving a sliver of it on the roadway area, on the widening area. But, you know, Grayson Creek is a full bridge demolition, so that's where most of the noise is going to come. But if we can stay within the 9 to 5, I think we should be okay on those. We're ready for the complaints to come in, but that's the best we can do for bridge demolition, because we can't do it in the daytime. Driven piles, I mentioned. I've highlighted the 680 separation here because this one appears to be the one that's most congested between driving piles in the median and, you know, the exit ramps over here. 1, 2, 3 locations that you may have to use these low overhead drill rig equipment. And in my little animation drawing over here, I've kind of showed in gray where the bridges are on top, and then the footings below, where the median ones are the ones that are going to be kind of getting close to the bridge, depending on how much we remove from it. So we've addressed those in the contract, and hopefully it's clear to everybody that this one is not your normal rig. And then more importantly, you know, when you set here on your equipment, there's a lot of ground anchors that hold this temporary retaining, retaining wall for the abutments. So we're going to have to face those when we put our piles on the abutments. So there's ground anchors to be verified that we miss them before we do any pile driving. So again, special equipment, and because of the height limitations, and these are driven pipe piles, you might have to do some field splicing in the field on the job site. And then in terms of movement, I want to highlight that too. You may not be able to move this crane or rig you have out there in the daytime, so it's stuck there doing pile driving in the daytime, but then we have closures allowed in the nighttime where then you can have delivery of materials and movement of your equipment. So that's how we anticipated the contract. You do driving at night, daytime, and then you move equipment and bring in material at nighttime. Because of the sensitivity of a lot of the structures, more importantly extra space storage, we have required vibration monitoring. If you look at this photo right here, there's extra space storage directly underneath where we're going to be building a bridge on the inside and on the outside. So there's extra space storage, not only for vibration monitoring, but then we also have Kinder Morgan and what is it, Shell oil? Oil lines. Phillips 66 that need to be monitored so to make sure we don't damage. And that's kind of where we stand with those. Outside of them being on the job site watching us do the work, we have to do some vibration monitoring to show them that we're not doing any severe issues, damage or any concerns for their facilities. Lane closures. I think there's 28 total lane closure charts on this, you know, so if you're trying to do one work in one location, you may have to use 4 or 5 lane charts just to get your closure through Caltrans. So I've highlighted all of them. That includes lane closures, freeway closures, street closures, local street lane closures. So we just need to look at those closely to make sure that we're implementing the correct one. Someone had asked, can we you know, put false work out there on Solano using the lane closure chart M1 or M4? The answer is yes, only for pile driving. So pay attention to some of those lane closure charts and make sure you're using them correctly. There's just a lot of them. And then with that, Caltrans and COZEEP will be very involved, and then we've defined a complete freeway closure is allowed, but it can only be for certain things. So you can't just close the freeway just because you want to close the freeway. It's only for specific items. So that's also outlined in the contract. As far as detours, we're going to have many of them because we're going to be erecting false work and such on the freeway or false work on local streets. So we do have freeway detours specified. Just take a look at those to make sure that, you know, when we plan our work out, that those are being implemented in a manner that, you know, we will provide public safety, the traffic detours are correct, and they're not creating confusion to the work that we're performing, and let alone the detours that we're providing. And here's local street closure as an example for Peralta, where we actually close the bridge here, and then we go around and get people to go around the other side. If I go backwards on this one, I forgot to mention, on the freeway, here we're closing a stretch of the freeway from 680 all the way out to, what is that one, Solano Way. So again, we're taking people off the freeway and making them go through all this green route to get back on the freeway. And Caltrans was acceptable to that, so, you know, we're just gonna have to make that work. So for whatever work we need to do on this stretch, at least for right now, that is allowed. And last but not least, the famous coordination. There's so many people involved in this project, you know, not only from a construction perspective, but also in-house perspective. So when you put them all together, outside of building the job, everyone has to be happy in one shape or form. So I just wanted to highlight that this job is no different, because at the end of the day, we got to get the job done. So CCTA has been very proactive in getting a lot of utility work relocated outside of what we're trying to do. So currently right now, we have a contractor out there working for Kinder Morgan and Phillips 66, where this existing oil line that's owned by Phillips 66 and Kinder Morgan that goes right through the Grayson Creek Bridge is being relocated now and going down here in this new location. So we're out there watching it to make sure, and as-builting it to make sure that nothing is abandoned, left in place on our new footings. Make sure you rip it out of the way. That way when you guys go out there, to the best that we can, we've done our best to make sure we don't get delayed when we get going. So that project is slated to complete around September, which one is this one? This one, October. So hopefully by the time we start, they're out of the way. Okay? And also, adjacent projects. This is going to affect Grayson Creek coordination. There's a levee raising project highlighted here in green that's coming up, but it's not till in 2020, from what I understand. So by then, we should be complete with Grayson Creek Stage 1, but we still will be there for Stage 2. So all they want to make sure is they're able to complete their work over here. So we're going to have to do some coordination, whether we start here while they're there and vice versa. So until we get there, that's something that we just have to keep in mind that it's coming up. And here it is on Solano Way. I want to highlight this. Here's what it says in the specs sometime, as I speak now, is limited nighttime entry. The driveways on Solano to get in and out, you know, are not allowed because it's still being used by public as we're building the project. So we have added language to maybe you have to create a path along the top here to get to the work behind using Caltrans right away. the storage units must be protected at all times because they are still being used, and then we secure the area from what we're doing versus what they're doing when we go out and leave the project at nighttime. And of course, they want us to implement some vibration monitoring, and all that has to happen while we're trying to build this whole bridge over the top of them, you know. So again, false work. So I'm talking about this area right here because that's where the building is. To erect all this false work, remove false work, and everything else, they're limiting us. Hey, you can only be here between 9 and 8. You can only do it in a couple nights. So it really has to be pre-planned out, because if you can't do it in 2 nights, then they're not going to allow us for a 3rd night at this point. So that's what I want to highlight there. And Buchanan Field. Sometimes this is easily missed, although there's a big airport out there. So the 4 structures that are near the airport, crane is what they're concerned about, depending on what crane you're using. There's an advisory circular from FAA that requires the height restrictions and the light requirements. They're referenced in our contract, but if you can see all our runways going this way and landing maybe going this way, maybe that's not an issue, but these 3 particular ones, depending on what equipment you're using, we just have to comply with those, coordinate with them to make sure we're not putting a 200-foot crane out there in the middle of their whatever landing high season, whatever that airport is references to. So that is the big picture that I have, guys. Again, this project is on Bid Express, so please check the bidder inquiries regularly, because we try to answer as fast as we can and then issue addendums as quickly as we can. Right now, there's probably only 8 to 10 questions that are in there. The last day to submit this, as I said at the beginning, is on August 16th. So after that, we can't accept any more inquiries. And of course, our bid opening is on August 23rd. It is all slated to start this project on October 19th. So, and it is a big deal for CCTA to make sure it happens. So with that, I'm gonna leave it with you guys. If you have any questions, hopefully we can answer them. And if we can't, we will get back to you. And more importantly, please submit them officially through bidder inquiry so we can get those answered officially as well. So, okay? Question? Ask them. Okay, Ivan, I'll turn it back over to you and we could chat afterwards too. Thanks.
Again, thank you for watching online, and also this will live at our YouTube site, and you can go back and watch it if you want to revisit some of the information we have provided. Other than that, thank you for coming, and we look forward to getting all your bids.
Yep.